Camera Raw has several different tools for correcting lens distortions, adjusting the perspective, and cropping and straightening images. I'll select the Small House DNG and then click the Open in Camera Raw icon. Then I'll apply a quick auto adjustment by clicking on Auto. Now, depending on the quality as well as the focal length of the lens that is used to capture the photograph, you may or may not see any distortions in your image caused by the lens. Typically, the distortion is much more noticeable with wide-angle lenses, and it gets worse in high-contrast areas along the edge of files. If we look underneath the histogram, we can see that this photograph was taken with a 24-105 lens, and it was shot at 24 millimeters, so that's a relatively wide-angle image. If I click in the bright area here along the side of the image, we can see what's called chromatic aberration, and that's the misalignment of pixels. On one side, the misalignment shows itself as being this green color, and on the other side, we see a red color. In order to fix that, all we need to do is choose our optics panel and then remove the chromatic aberration. All right, let's zoom out, and to remove any distortions caused by the lens, I'll enable the Use Profile Correction. Because the file contains the information about the lens within the EXIF data in the file, we can see that by using this disclosure triangle, Camera Raw has identified the make and model of the camera, automatically applied the correct profile. So here it is before the profile correction, and here it is after. Now, to correct the perspective of the image, we're going to want to move to the crop tool. Here I'll want to use the options in the geometry panel, and there are several upright auto modes. We have auto to do an auto correction. We can just level the image with the second option. We can put the emphasis on correcting the vertical lines by selecting the third option. And if we want Camera Raw to treat the vertical and horizontal lines in an image that it finds equally, we can select the fourth icon. If we want more control, we can select the fifth icon, and then we can drag out our own guides. I'm going to enable the loop option so that when I position my cursor in the image area, we see a magnified view of the area that the cursor is on top of. I'll use this as my first reference, and I'll click and drag down. If we need to adjust this, we can always drag on the ends in the circle area. Then I'm going to use this line here on the right side and drag out my second guide. I'll use the top of the windows in order to drag out the third guide. And then I sort of need to guess down here at the bottom. I'm assuming that this house is actually straight up and down, which it might not be, but that's looking much better. If you don't like the loop showing, you can always toggle that off, and you could zoom in instead. We can also toggle the grid overlay if we want to see an overlay of a grid on our image, and we can use the options at the top to change the grid size as well as the grid opacity. For now, I'll go ahead and toggle that off. Now, after you apply a strong upright adjustment, you might want to use some of the manual transformations. We have transformations that will adjust the vertical perspective and the horizontal perspective of an image. If you want to reset these quickly, you can just double-click on the tick marks. We can also rotate the image, or we can change the aspect. I find the aspect slider especially helpful when I need to crop to a different aspect ratio than the original photograph. Say, for example, if I need to post this to a certain aspect ratio on a social media site, because the aspect slider will help me by either squishing or elongating the image to maybe fit within the new crop. We can also scale the image, and we can use the offset sliders to reposition the image both vertically as well as horizontally. Excellent. I'll go ahead and click Done, and that will take us back to Bridge where we can see those adjustments have been made. So there you go, some quick tools for correcting lens distortions and adjusting perspective in Camera Raw.